Hi, K-pop lovers. Welcome back to our channel. Before we dive in, if you're new here, hit that subscribe button right now, smash the like if you think BTS deserves an honest conversation, and drop in the comments, are you still an active ARMY, or have you quietly drifted away? I read every single one. Now, let's talk. Here's something that might genuinely shock you. BTS, the group that literally changed the global music industry, dropped out of Spotify's top 30 most streamed artists of 2024. In 2023, they were sitting at number 21. 1 year later, gone from the list entirely. According to Chartmasters, which tracks Spotify data with daily precision, BTS ranked at number 21 among the world's most streamed artists in 2023, but in 2024, they were simply unable to replicate that success and fell off the top rankings completely. Chartmasters, and it doesn't stop there. In 2025, BTS once again missed the cut for the list of artists who achieved 5 billion Spotify streams in a single year, sitting alongside names like Maroon 5, Beyoncé, and Shakira, who also missed the mark that year. Chartmasters. For a group that once dominated the entire planet, those are numbers that deserve a real conversation. But here's what I need you to understand before we go any further: this video is not about BTS falling apart. Stick with me until the very end, because what happens in the second half of this story might completely change how you see all of this. There is a plot twist, and it is massive. To understand the streaming decline, you have to understand what actually happened to BTS, and it starts with two words that no amount of Grammy nominations or Billboard records could protect them from: mandatory military service. By South Korean law, all young able-bodied men between the ages of 18 and 28 must serve between 18 to 21 months in the military, with no exceptions, not even for K-pop stars. Today.com. For years, ARMY held on to hope that BTS would receive a special exemption, the kind granted to Olympic athletes and classical musicians who bring international prestige to South Korea. That exemption never came. And so, one by one, they left. Jin was the first to enlist, stepping away on December 13, 2022. J Hope followed in April 2023. Suga enlisted in September 2023 as a social service worker due to a past shoulder surgery. Then RM, V, Jimin, and Jungkook all enlisted in December 2023. Stylecaster. Think about what that actually means in real terms. From late 2022 all the way through mid-2025, for nearly 3 full years, BTS as a group was completely silent. No group albums. No group tours. No group performances. 7 members, separated, scattered across different military units across South Korea, completely cut off from the music they had built their entire lives around. And the music industry, as it always does, kept moving without them. Now let's get into the actual numbers, and I want to be crystal clear: everything I'm about to tell you comes from verified, documented data. No rumors. No fan speculation. No drama for the sake of drama. During 2023 and 2024, with no new group music being released, BTS's collective streaming numbers naturally declined. That is not a scandal, that is basic music industry math. No new music equals lower monthly streams. It happened to the Beatles after they broke up. It happened to One Direction. It has happened to every group that has ever gone on an extended hiatus. Activity drives streaming. Silence kills momentum. That is just the reality. But there is another layer to this story that made BTS's streaming numbers look even worse on paper, and this part is genuinely wild. In 2025, Spotify conducted a sweeping removal of what it classified as artificial streams, and BTS members were hit hard. Jin's solo release allegedly lost over 15 million streams overnight. V's track, Winter Ahead, had 13 million streams deleted. And Jimin reportedly suffered the most among all K-pop artists caught in the sweep. His 2024 track, Jungkook lost over 15 million streams, with fans documenting that over 200 million total streams were wiped across multiple removal waves. Kpopping industry data trackers confirmed the scale was staggering, with Jimin alone reportedly losing up to 200 million streams on a single song within just a few months. Nexitune's Spotify maintains these removals are targeting fraudulent activity. ARMY strongly disputes that. But regardless of where you stand on that debate, the visible, public-facing streaming numbers took a brutal hit, and casual observers, people who don't follow K-pop closely, simply saw the numbers collapse and assumed BTS was finished. That is the first truth this video needs to tell you. A significant portion of the so-called decline was not organic at all. But let's be honest with each other, we cannot put all the blame on Spotify's algorithm. While BTS was serving their country, the K-pop industry did not pause out of respect. A new generation of groups erupted onto the global stage. Stray Kids, 17, New Jeans, aespa. These groups were releasing music constantly, going on world tours, showing up at award shows, and building massive, passionate fan bases of their own. As NPR noted in 2026, since the last time BTS released an album as a group, other acts in the genre continued topping charts, and a cultural phenomenon called K-pop Demon Hunters even earned the first-ever Grammy win for a K-pop song. NPR: The global appetite for K-pop didn't shrink during BTS's absence. It grew. But BTS wasn't there to capture any of it. And here is the hard truth that every honest fan has to sit with at some point: hype is not evergreen. The cultural moment that BTS occupied in 2019, 2020, 2021, when Dynamite and Butter were literally inescapable, when they were performing at the UN, when they were the biggest act on the planet, that specific moment cannot be artificially preserved. The world moves forward. Trends shift. New voices emerge. That doesn't mean BTS is finished. But it does mean the version of BTS that existed before the military is a chapter that has closed, and what comes next has to be built fresh, in a new era, for an audience that has also changed. Now here is where the story turns. And if you've stayed with me this long, I genuinely appreciate it, because this next part is what the entire video was always building toward. While their group streaming numbers were declining, while the K-pop world was moving on, while casual fans were quietly letting their Spotify playlists drift toward newer names, something else was happening behind the scenes. Each BTS member used the gaps around their enlistment to develop their individual artistry in ways that simply would not have been possible under the pressure of being in the world's most famous boy band. RM released thoughtful, critically acclaimed solo work. V's debut album, Layover, entered the Billboard 200 at number 2, and even during his military service, RM managed to release his second solo album, Right Place, Wrong Person, in May 2024. Stylecaster Jungkook released Golden, an all-English album featuring collaborations with Western artists like Jack Harlow and Usher. J Hope completed his military service and immediately went on a world solo tour, proving without any doubt that he had not lost a single step during his time in uniform. Korea Boo, these were not filler projects to keep the brand alive. These were 7 artists genuinely maturing, growing, and learning things about themselves that they never could have discovered while being BTS every single moment of every single day. And all of those lessons, all of that growth, all of that hunger built up over nearly 4 years of silence, it was all pouring into something. By June 2025, all 7 members had completed their mandatory military service. Suga was the very last, discharged on June 21, 2025, marking the moment the full group was finally free and together again. Today.com. And what did they do the moment they were reunited? All 7, RM, Jin, Suga, J Hope, Jimin, V, and Jungkook, relocated to Los Angeles, where they lived together and went to the recording studio every single day, writing and creating as a group for the first time in years. Rolling Stone. The result of those sessions became one of the most anticipated albums in modern music history. On March 20, 2026, BTS released RM, their sixth Korean-language studio album and their first album in nearly 6 years since B in 2020. The album was produced alongside names like Diplo, Ryan Tedder of One Republic, Kevin Parker of Tame Impala, Flume, Mike Will Made It, and Jbeg Mafia. Wikipedia: the day after the album dropped, BTS performed a free comeback concert at Gwanghwamun Square in Seoul, one of the most historically and symbolically significant public spaces in all of Korea, streamed live to the entire world on Netflix. The live stream pulled in 18.4 million global viewers, reaching Netflix's weekly top 10 in 80 countries and landing the #1 spot in 24 of them. Wikipedia: and the streaming numbers that people had been watching fall for 2 years. RM debuted at #1 on the Billboard 200, while the lead single, Swim, simultaneously topped the Billboard Hot 100. The album sold 532,000 copies in its first week, including more than 200,000 on vinyl alone. 13 of the album's 14 tracks landed on the Hot 100 in the same week. NPR: those first week numbers were the biggest for any album since Taylor Swift's most recent record-breaking debut. NPR: not bad for a group that everyone was quietly writing off. So what does all of this actually mean? The streaming decline was real. It was documented. It was not invented by haters or manufactured by the media. BTS remains the most streamed group of all time on Spotify, sitting ahead of Coldplay and Imagine Dragons in the all-time rankings chartmasters, but their annual momentum had clearly and measurably slowed during the hiatus years. That is simply a fact. But here is the larger truth that nobody wants to acknowledge when they are busy writing clickbait headlines: a temporary dip in streaming numbers during a mandatory, government-enforced military absence is not the same thing as a career ending. The hype machine that built BTS into a global phenomenon was never going to sustain that exact peak intensity forever. What can last, what has always lasted in music, is genuine artistry, genuine connection, and the willingness to grow into something new rather than desperately clinging to what you used to be. As one Korean music expert put it plainly, before they went into the military, they were like people who were half complete, and after their discharge, they came out with a more solid, more grounded presence as men and as artists. NPR industry projections now suggest BTS's current world tour, spanning 34 cities across the globe, could rival Taylor Swift's Eras tour, which stands as the most financially successful concert tour in history. NPR: not bad for a group the algorithm forgot. So here is the question I want to leave you with, and I genuinely, seriously want your answer in the comments right now. Do you think BTS's best days are already behind them, or is RM just the opening chapter of their greatest era yet? Write it below. I'm pinning the most interesting responses. If this video gave you something real to think about, something beyond the usual hot takes and drama, please hit the like button. It takes 1 second and it genuinely helps this channel reach people who want honest analysis, not just noise. Subscribe if you haven't already, because we cover K-pop, global music, and the real stories behind the numbers every single week. And share this with a fellow ARMY, or better yet, share it with someone who thinks BTS is finished, because the data tells a very, very different story. This has been your host. I'll see you in the next one. Purple Heart Annyeong.